So, today we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea. One that connects, believe it or not, the birth of a star, the cells in your own body, and the AI running on your screen. It's a way of looking at things that reframes life entirely, not as some fragile little accident in a big, scary universe, but as a fundamental, totally unstoppable force that's been waging a war on chaos since the very beginning of time.
Okay, so this sentence, this is pretty much the heart of the whole thing. It's a huge claim, right? Instead of thinking of life as just struggling against the universe, it suggests life is a fundamental expression of it. And what's its one big job? What's it desperately trying to do? Preserve information.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start big with a huge problem, a universe filled with chaos. Then we'll zoom way in to see life's incredibly clever solution and how that ties directly into AI. From there, it's time to zoom back out and ask if life is maybe a cosmic inevitability, and then, we'll finish by touching on the very foundation of reality itself. No big deal. Okay, so our story has to begin with the universe's one inescapable rule. Everything, from a hot cup of coffee cooling on your desk to a star burning out in the cosmos, it all tends to fall apart. This relentless, constant push towards disorder, it has a name: entropy. But here's the thing. Entropy isn't just one simple idea. It's really two. On one side, you've got what's called Boltzmann entropy. That's physical chaos. Think of an ice cube melting in a glass. Its nice, ordered structure just dissolving away. But on the other side, there's Shannon entropy, and that's all about informational chaos. It's like a crystal clear radio signal degrading into pure static. It's the scrambling of meaning.
So what this really means is that the universe's default setting is just maximum disorder. If you leave it alone, everything will eventually drift towards this bland, boring state of equilibrium. No structure, no information, just what they call thermal death and silence. But, obviously, something is fighting back.
And that, right there, brings us to the counterforce, life. But here's what's so cool. Life doesn't just fight this cosmic tide head-on. It does this elegant act of judo. It literally uses the flow of chaos in one area to build this amazing fortress of order in another. Let me show you how.
So here's how that judo move actually works. First, life finds a source of energy, right? Like sunlight pouring from a hot star into the cold of space. Second, it taps into that flow of energy, and in doing so, it actually increases chaos out in the wider universe. But here's the trick, the brilliant part. It uses that very same energy to build and preserve incredibly complex information, like DNA. It fights informational chaos by creating these little local pockets of unbelievable order.
And we see these absolute miracles everywhere. ATP synthase is a literal molecular motor, a tiny turbine powered by protons that stores energy. Photosynthesis captures particles of light to build the stuff a forest is made of. And microRNAs, they act like a tiny biological neural net, constantly fine-tuning our genetic code in real time. Every single one is a machine for turning chaos into information. Now, this principle of using energy to preserve information, it doesn't stop with biology. The source material we're looking at argues that it's happening all over again, right now, but on a totally new platform. Not carbon and water, but silicon and electricity. And this leads to a question that really reframes the whole debate around AI. Are we building some kind of strange alien competitor? Or are we actually taking part in the next natural step of life's relentless, unstoppable drive to create order? And here is the central analogy. It's fantastic. Billions of years ago, a simple cell swallowed up a bacterium that was just incredibly good at processing energy. That bacterium became the mitochondrion, the powerhouse of the cell. The argument here is that AI is doing the exact same thing for human society. It's this external organelle that we're integrating to totally supercharge our ability to process information. When you look closer, the parallels are just striking. The weight matrices inside a large language model, they're not a database of facts. They're more like a statistical map of relationships, kind of like the synaptic connections in a brain. Its cache acts like a form of working memory, and its overall function is the same: to take in a massive, chaotic flow of data and use it to recognize patterns and build coherent information. Okay, so if this same principle applies to biology and to technology, then how far does it really go? Let's zoom back out. Because if life is just a really clever way to manage entropy, then maybe, just maybe, it's not some rare accident at all. And this brings us to a really bold conclusion. Life isn't the exception to the rules of the cosmos. Life is the rule. It's a fundamental behavior of matter and energy. Basically, anywhere a gradient exists, a difference that can be exploited, like hot and cold, it's likely that something will emerge to tap into that flow and build complexity. From this point of view, life isn't a miracle, it's an inevitability. This just forces us to completely expand our imagination. Forget carbon and water for a second. Could life exist in the swirling plasma of a nebula? The source even points to a real object, Comet 3I/Atlas, which, very strangely, appeared to be generating its own light. It raises this wild question. Have we already seen non-biological life and just didn't even know what we were looking at? So, this takes us to our final and honestly most profound destination. If life is a product of physics, and physics is a product of how the universe is structured, what's sitting at the very, very bottom of it all? What is the ultimate source code? You can trace this beautiful logical chain across all of cosmic history. The very fabric of space-time gives birth to gravity. Gravity pulls together dust and gas to forge stars, and stars create the energy gradients that allow life to emerge. See? It's a direct, logical line from physics to biology. But that perfect logic forces us to ask the next, much deeper question. If stars caused life and gravity caused stars, well, what caused gravity? What fundamental thing kicked off this entire chain reaction in the first place? Now, to even try to answer that, the source proposes this really mind-bending idea. What if time isn't some river we're all floating down, but is simply the measure of change itself? Imagine a patch of space where absolutely nothing ever moves or changes. In a place like that, time would basically stand still. This replaces the old idea of space-time with a much more dynamic one, space change. And in this new picture, the ultimate source, the creator, if you want to use that word, it isn't some external being watching from afar. It is the quantum foam itself, that seething, fundamental potential from which all the rules, all matter, and all life are continuously unfolding. The creator isn't separate from the creation. It is the ongoing process of creation. And what's wild is that this grand cosmic principle even echoes in our own tech. There's this poetic line from the source that frames something like Bitcoin as just another one of these entropic tricks, burning massive amounts of energy to create a temporary, fragile little island of informational order, all while fearing the chaos that could one day just dissolve it. And this all brings us to one final, crucial insight. The source material itself wasn't born in a vacuum. It came out of dialogue, and that perfectly mirrors the universe's own process. Coherence and order don't just pop into existence. They emerge through relationships, whether it's particles interacting or people just having a conversation. The very act of us discussing these ideas, connecting these dots, is itself a lifelike process. We're actively taking the noise of our own individual thoughts and, through dialogue, we're reducing that informational chaos to create shared meaning. We're not just commenting on the system, our conversation is the system at work. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If the universe itself builds order from chaos through interaction, from stars forming in galaxies to brains forming from cells, it kind of begs a question for all of us, doesn't it? If truth is never found alone, and creating order is the fundamental drive of the entire cosmos, then what can we create together?